Have you ever changed your website's primary color and then spent the next 20 minutes hunting down 47 different CSS files? Or maybe you've copied the same spacing values over and over again until your CSS became a giant copy-paste machine. 5 years ago, developers solved this with SASS variables. But in 2026, modern CSS has evolved. Today, you'll learn CSS variables, dynamic calculations, responsive sizing with clamp, and even conditional logic directly inside CSS. No preprocessors required. By the end of this video, you'll build a fully customizable design system that can switch themes, scale automatically across devices, and react to conditions, all with pure CSS. And honestly, once you start using these techniques, going back to hard-coded values feels like coding with a stone tablet. Open VS Code. Create an index.html file and a style.css file. If you're using GitHub Copilot, Cursor, or another AI coding assistant, you'll notice that AI often suggests CSS variables automatically because this has become the standard workflow in modern front-end development. Let's start with a common problem. We'll create a simple button and give it a background color, white text, and some padding. Looks fine, until your designer sends a message saying, "Can we make the blue a little darker?" Now imagine you have 100 buttons, 50 cards, 30 links, and a dozen banners all using the exact same color. Suddenly, a tiny design change becomes a treasure hunt. This is where CSS variables save your sanity. Instead of hard-coding values everywhere, we create a variable inside the root selector. Think of root as a global storage box for your entire website. We define a custom property called primary color. Then, wherever we need that color, we use the var function. Now watch this. Change the value once, the entire website updates instantly. No searching, no replacing, no mistakes, just one change. This is the exact moment most developers stop hard-coding values forever. One variable. Entire website updated. If that just clicked for you, hit subscribe because modern CSS only gets crazier from here. Now here's where things get really powerful. Colors are only the beginning. Professional developers don't just store colors, they store everything. Spacing, border radius, font sizes, shadows, animation durations, essentially every value that might need to change later. This approach is called a design system. Instead of random numbers scattered throughout your CSS, every value has a single source of truth. Now let's use those variables inside a card component. The padding comes from our spacing variable. The border radius comes from our radius variable. Everything stays consistent. And consistency is what makes websites feel professional. Next, let's talk about one of the coolest applications of CSS variables, theme switching. We'll create a dark theme by redefining some variables. Notice what we're doing. We're not rewriting components, we're not duplicating CSS. We're only changing the variables. The card doesn't know whether it's in light mode or dark mode. It simply asks for the value of -primary color, and whichever value is currently available gets applied automatically. That's the magic. Change the variables, not the components. Quick pause. You've already learned one of the most important techniques used by professional front-end developers. To save you from constantly pausing and rewinding, I've included today's key takeaway summary and all code snippets below the video. Grab them now and keep building while you watch. Now let's unlock the next level. Variables become truly powerful when combined with calculations. Welcome to Calc. With Calc, CSS can perform math directly inside your style sheets. Imagine you have a base font size variable. Now, instead of manually calculating larger font sizes, CSS can do it for you. Double the size, multiply it, add to it, subtract from it, all dynamically. This means when the base value changes, everything updates proportionally. That's huge for maintainability. Here's another practical example. Let's say you want a container to always leave 20 pixels of space on each side. Instead of manually calculating widths, you can use Calc. CSS does the math automatically. Modern CSS isn't just styling anymore, it's becoming a lightweight calculation engine. Now let's talk about one of the most important responsive design tools ever added to CSS, Clamp. Most beginners solve responsive typography by writing multiple media queries. One breakpoint for tablets, another for phones, another for desktops. Before long, the style sheet becomes a maze. Modern developers often solve this with a single line. Clamp accepts three values: a minimum value, a preferred value, and a maximum value. Think of it like a smart thermostat. As the screen gets larger, the value grows. As the screen gets smaller, the value shrinks. But it never goes below the minimum and never exceeds the maximum. This makes typography incredibly responsive with almost no effort. Resize the browser window and watch the text scale smoothly. No media queries, no complicated logic, just one line of CSS. This is why Clamp has become one of the most loved CSS functions in modern front-end development. Quick question for you. What's your preferred sizing strategy today? Do you still use PX? Have you switched to rem? Or are you using Clamp everywhere? Let me know in the comments and tell me why. Now let's explore two lesser-known but incredibly useful functions: min and max. The min function chooses whichever value is smaller. For example, if we set a width using min 800px 90%, CSS compares both values and uses the smaller one. This creates layouts that stay responsive without becoming excessively large. On the other hand, max chooses whichever value is larger. This is perfect when you want to enforce a minimum level of spacing or sizing. For example, a card might use a responsive padding value, but you never want that padding to become too small. Max handles that automatically. These functions eliminate a surprising number of media queries and help create layouts that adapt naturally. Now it's time for the futuristic part: CSS Logic. For years, developers relied on JavaScript or preprocessors whenever styling needed conditions. But CSS is evolving. The new if function introduces conditional styling directly inside CSS. Now, browser support is still evolving, so always verify current support before using it in production. But understanding where CSS is heading is important. Imagine styling a component differently based on a theme variable, or changing spacing based on a condition. Previously, these kinds of decisions often required JavaScript. Now CSS itself is beginning to handle them. This is a massive shift in front-end development. CSS is gradually becoming more intelligent, more expressive, and more capable of handling design logic directly. The gap between CSS and preprocessing tools continues to shrink, so let's put everything together into a mini project. We'll build a smart card component. Our colors come from variables, our spacing comes from variables, our border radius comes from variables. The width uses min to stay responsive, the heading uses clamp to scale smoothly across devices, and the entire component can instantly adapt when theme variables change. Notice what's happening here. We're no longer writing isolated styles. We're building a system where one change can affect an entire application. This is exactly how modern design systems are created inside large companies and professional front-end teams. Now it's your turn. Here's today's challenge. Build a pricing card component using CSS Variables. Create both a light theme and a dark theme. Use Clamp for responsive typography. Use either min or max for layout sizing. And somewhere in your project, use Calc for a meaningful calculation. If you're feeling adventurous, experiment with conditional styling patterns and explore where modern CSS is heading. The goal isn't just to copy code. The goal is to think like a front-end engineer. Let's wrap up today's lesson. Today, you learned that CSS variables eliminate hard-coded values and make websites easier to maintain. You learned that Calc allows CSS to perform calculations dynamically. You discovered how Clamp creates fluid, responsive sizing with almost no effort. You saw how min and max simplify layout decisions. And you got a glimpse into the future with CSS conditional logic. Most importantly, you learned a professional principle. Never hard-code values that might need to change globally. Store them in variables and build systems instead of isolated styles. Congratulations. You're no longer writing beginner CSS. You're building scalable, maintainable design systems. And that's a huge step toward becoming a professional front-end developer. In the next episode, we'll explore modern accessibility techniques that separate professional developers from everyone else. Don't forget to take the quiz in the description to lock in today's knowledge. If this video helped you level up your CSS skills, hit like, share it with another developer, and I'll see you in the next lesson.